glass doors of ApexTech's Seattle headquarters hissed shut behind me, sealing me into a world of polished chrome and cold ambition. My reflection stared back, blazer slightly frayed at the cuffs, hair pulled into a bun that was more practical than perfect, and a resume folder clutched so tightly my knuckles ached. The lobby smelled like lemon polish and money, the kind of place where dreams either soared or shattered. Today I was betting on the former, but the weight of my sister Victoria's shadow loomed larger than the skyscraper I stood in. I adjusted my name badge, the plastic digging into my palm. Emma Larson, it read, as if my name needed permission to exist here. The ApexTech logo pulsed on every screen, a neon blue reminder of the tech giant's dominance in AI systems. I'd spent years clawing my way toward this moment, freelancing through sleepless nights, piecing together code and ethics frameworks while the world slept. But as I stepped into the elevator, the ding felt like a warning bell. Floor 42. Interview round. My stomach churned, not from nerves, but from a gut-deep certainty that something was about to go wrong. The elevator opened to a conference room encased in glass, like a fishbowl for corporate sharks. I scanned the room, a dozen candidates all in tailored suits, their Rolexes glinting under the fluorescent lights. They belonged here, or at least they looked like they did. I took the only open chair, off-center, slightly wobbly, as if it had been left for the underdog. My thrift store blazer felt like a neon sign screaming, "Outsider!" A guy with a Yale pin on his lapel glanced at me, his lip curling just enough to sting. I forced a smile. He didn't return it. Then the door clicked, and she walked in. Victoria, my older sister. Navy silk blouse, heels that clicked like a metronome, and a coffee mug that probably cost more than my rent. Her makeup was flawless, her auburn hair swept into a bun that screamed authority. She didn't look at me, not a nod, not a flicker of recognition. She glided to the panelists' table, her presence commanding the room like a queen claiming her court. My breath caught, a reflex from years of her overshadowing me. Family dinners where she was the star, holidays where my achievements were footnotes to her glory. 7 years ago, she'd tanked my first real job interview with a single phone call. I'd hoped today would be different. I was wrong. The head panelist, Mark, a guy with a tan too perfect for Seattle's gray skies, introduced the session with buzzwords that felt like static. Synergy, scalability, leadership potential. I gripped my resume folder, the edges soft from months of rejections. An assistant circled with a coffee tray offering cups to everyone but me. I didn't flinch, but Victoria's smirk over her mug sliced through me. She leaned toward the woman next to her, Sarah, and whispered, "Still dressing like she's raiding a Goodwill bin." Sarah's chuckle was sharp, a blade wrapped in politeness. My face burned, but I kept my eyes on the table, tracing the fake wood grain to steady myself. I wasn't new to this. Victoria had always known how to cut without leaving fingerprints. At 24, I'd poured my soul into a data analytics pitch for a nonprofit, shared it with her in a moment of naive trust. A week later, her firm launched it as their own. She didn't even lie about it, just shrugged over wine at a family dinner and said, "If people assume it's mine, that's not my fault." My dad toasted her vision that night, while I was left picking up the pieces of a stolen dream. "Kind," he called me. The word stuck like a splinter. They started calling candidates. One by one, they stood, delivering polished introductions. Victoria nodded, smiled, took notes. When my name was called, she didn't look up. I stood, heart pounding, and placed my resume in front of her. She picked it up, glanced at it for 2 seconds, then slid it to Mark like it was junk mail. He set it aside without a word. No questions, no chance to speak, just dismissal. I sat back down, the clock ticking louder than my pulse. Someone coughed behind me. I heard a whisper, "Didn't think she was even in tech." Victoria's laugh followed. soft but lethal. Mark leaned back, twirling a pen. "So, Emma, what makes you think you're ready for ApexTech?" His tone was amused, like he was humoring a kid. I opened my mouth, but Victoria cut in, snatching my resume again. She clicked her red pen and scrawled across it, "Wrong skills, wrong vibe, unqualified." The ink bled through, bold and final. She slid it back across the table with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Still chasing those cute little coding hobbies?" she said, her voice dripping with mock sweetness. The room chuckled. Mark smirked. Even the assistant hid a grin. My hands stayed steady, but inside I was unraveling. I remembered the nights I'd spent teaching myself system design, the freelance gigs that kept me afloat while my ex called it a phase. I remembered Victoria accidentally sending my portfolio to a rival client, costing me a deal on my birthday. I looked at her now, not the corporate goddess, but the sister who'd once read my diary aloud at school to make her friends laugh. I'd hoped, foolishly, that she'd see me today. She didn't. She never would. "I led an AI ethics redesign for 3 platforms," I said, my voice calm despite the storm inside. "Last year, I cut processing time by 34% on a predictive data system. That framework—" "Still playing with your little projects?" Victoria interrupted, turning to the panel. While I was keynoting at CES, she was uploading resumes to LinkedIn. More chuckles. My neck burned, but I didn't flinch. Not this time. Mark leaned back. "We've seen enough. Thanks for the enthusiasm." He folded my resume in half, the red ink glaring like a wound. "Good luck finding something at your level. Maybe customer service?" The room laughed. Victoria's fingers drummed on the table, her victory complete. I stood, nodded once, and walked out. The glass doors slid shut behind me, and Seattle's drizzle greeted me like an old friend. I didn't stop until I reached a cramped coffee shop 2 blocks away, the kind with chipped mugs and baristas who didn't care about your story. I ordered a black coffee I wouldn't drink and sank into a corner table. My resume folder sat in front of me, victorious red ink staining the corner, unqualified. The word echoed, not just from today, but from a decade of her rewriting my story to make herself the hero. My phone buzzed, a text from James, my fiancé. "How'd it go?" I stared at it, thumbs hovering. I typed. It went exactly how she wanted. Then I deleted it. That was her narrative, not mine. I typed one word instead. "Fine." I stood, slipped on my coat, and headed back to ApexTech. I wasn't done, not today. The elevator dinged again, louder this time, like it knew I was walking into a fight. The security guard blinked when I stormed back in. "I'm here for the open assessment round," I said, my voice steady. He hesitated, then picked up the phone. 2 minutes later, I was back on the 42nd floor. The panel's faces froze when I walked in. Thin smiles, twitching brows. Victoria's smirk was instant. "Changed your mind? You never could let go." Said nothing, just pulled out the wobbly chair and sat. Mark leaned back, his grin theatrical. "Well, since you're so eager, let's see if you're worth this room." He slid a thick packet across the table. Paper, no laptop, no calculator. 10 pages, 15 minutes. No questions. "We're timing you." The packet was a beast. Algorithms, system logic, problems designed to break you. I heard a chuckle, probably Victoria's. My pen hit the paper and I started. Each second thumped in my ears. My wrist ached. My breath shortened, but I pushed through. Victoria leaned toward Sarah, whispering, "Let's see if her little AI hobby gets her anywhere." I didn't look up. When I finished, I slid the packet back, clean, no mistakes. Mark didn't smile. He flipped through it, then tore it in half, slow and deliberate. The rip echoed in the silent room. "Nice handwriting," he said, dropping the pieces into the trash. "But we don't hire dreamers." Laughter followed, sharp and cruel. Victoria tilted her head, her voice soft. "You always were stubborn, never learned when to quit." I stood, walked to the trash, and knelt. Piece by piece, I picked up the torn pages, not to save them, but to remember. The weight of their dismissal, the sound of paper ripping, the smugness in their eyes. Victoria's heel kicked the last page away, pinning it to the floor. "Still crawling for approval?" she whispered. I looked up, meeting her gaze. She expected tears. I gave her a smile instead. The rain had picked up by the time I left ApexTech. Again, Seattle's gray sky mirroring the storm inside me. I walked past a neon-lit diner, its glow cutting through the drizzle. My phone buzzed again, but I ignored it. I needed air, space, something to drown out the echo of Victoria's voice. I ducked into another coffee shop, this one louder, filled with the clatter of espresso machines and hipsters arguing over blockchain. I claimed a table by the window, my resume folder still in hand, the red ink now smudged but no less brutal. I traced the edges of the torn test pages I'd salvaged. Each one felt like a scar, proof of a fight I hadn't chosen but couldn't avoid. I thought of the family gala 2 weeks ago at a swanky Portland hotel, white tablecloths and champagne flutes, where Victoria had been the star. She'd walked in late, fresh off a call with some tech mogul in Silicon Valley, and my parents had stood to applaud her. I'd sat by a potted plant, sipping water, while my mom patted my hand and said, "Freelancing's cute, Emma. It's like a side hustle for your 20s. I was 32. During dessert, Victoria had talked up ApexTech's new AI ethics integration, words I knew too well because I'd written the framework 3 years ago. I'd shared it with her over coffee, thinking we were bonding. Now it was her triumph, her promotion. My dad raised his glass to our fearless innovator. I'd forced a smile, but Victoria leaned in, her voice a velvet knife. "You'll always be the little sister, Emma. You know that, right?" The camera flashed, capturing my fake smile, her victory sealed in a photo. Back in the coffee shop, my coffee had gone cold. I pulled out my phone, my inbox open to a resignation draft for a small startup I'd been coding for. I'd almost sent it last week, convinced I was wasting time on side gigs when I should be chasing something bigger. My thumb hovered over the send button, then I deleted it. Victoria didn't get to decide my worth, not anymore. I stood, my coat damp from the rain, and headed back to ApexTech. The security guard didn't blink this time. "Back again?" he asked, almost impressed. I nodded. Unfinished business. He waved me through, and the elevator carried me back to the 42nd floor. The panel was still there, reviewing notes, their laughter fading when I walked in. Victoria's eyes narrowed. "You really don't know when to stop, do you?" "I'm not here to beg," I said, stepping forward. "I'm here because you ignored my work." I placed a small folder on the table, printouts of my contributions to ApexTech's AI systems. Unsigned but undeniable. Mark opened his mouth to protest, but the door swung open behind me. The air shifted, like the room itself held its breath. James walked in, tailored black suit, no tie, his presence a quiet storm. The panel stood, chairs scraping. Victoria's hand flew to her mouth. Mr. Holden." He didn't look at her. He walked to me, his hand brushing my back, just enough to ground me. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low. I nodded. They didn't know who I was. He turned to the panel, his face unreadable. "Interesting, because some of you seem to know me very well." The story paused here, but the room didn't. Mark's pen froze mid-twirl. Sarah's notepad slid an inch away, like she could distance herself from what was coming. Victoria's lips parted, but no words came. James opened my folder, spreading pages across the glass table. "Emma Larson," he said, his voice cutting through the silence. "Freelance architect on 3 of our core AI systems, co-authored our 2021 ethics framework, the one half this panel still can't explain. Her work, not yours." He slid a metrics report across the table, one I'd built from scratch, but never signed. "This drove your last quarter's success. Her work, unsigned, unseen." His eyes locked on Victoria, and for the first time I saw her flinch. The room was a pressure cooker now, every glance a spark. I stood beside James, my torn test pages still in my bag, a reminder of what I'd endured to get here. Victoria's smirk was gone, replaced by something fragile, something human, but I wasn't here for her redemption. I was here for mine. The glass walls seemed to close in as James picked up a remote from the table. "Let's review the footage," he said, his tone calm but lethal. The screen in the corner flickered to life, and there I was, my voice steady as I listed my achievements, only to be drowned out by Mark's smirk, Sarah's backhanded comments, and Victoria's slow, deliberate takedown. Her whisper, "You'll never outshine me," hung in the air like a confession. The panel shifted uncomfortably, their confidence crumbling. The legal advisor, a woman in a sharp blazer, leaned forward. "This is a liability," she said flatly. "HR will be involved by end of day." Victoria's voice cracked. "She planned this. She wanted it on record." Her finger jabbed at me, accusing, desperate. I raised an eyebrow, letting her words hang unanswered. Silence was my weapon now. James turned to her, his voice ice. "So you admit you sabotaged her?" Victoria scoffed, but the room wasn't hers anymore. I stepped forward, sliding a black binder across the table. "This," I said, "is a server log from 2 nights ago. An email defaming me to a client, sent from your IP, Victoria, your admin pass, your lie." The room went still. Mark looked at his shoes. Sarah's pen stopped moving. The assistant in the corner, who'd laughed earlier, stared at the floor. James nodded once. Forging credentials to defame a candidate isn't just unethical, it's illegal. Victoria's face drained of color. "You think you're better than me now?" she snapped, her voice breaking. "Just because he picked you?" "No," I said, meeting her eyes. "I'm done being beneath you." Security arrived, their footsteps heavy on the tile. Victoria stood, jaw tight, but she couldn't resist one last jab. "This isn't over, Emma." They led her out, not with force, but with a finality that felt like justice. The board murmured, their voices low. James turned to me. "I move we reinstate Emma Larson as lead data strategist, full-time, with project lead authority." Hands went up, unanimous. The HR rep stood. "The role is yours. Victoria's office, too, if you want it." I shook my head. "I want a desk on the dev floor, closer to the work." As I signed the contract, Sarah slid a note across the table. "Welcome to where you belong." I didn't respond. I just walked out, the torn test pages in my bag, a quiet thunder in my steps. Outside, Seattle's golden haze softened the city's edges. I passed a diner, its neon sign buzzing, and thought of the gala again. My mom's gentle smile, my dad's toast to Victoria, the way they'd framed me as the dreamer, never the doer. I'd carried that weight for years, but now it was lifting. My phone buzzed. A text from my mom. I didn't see everything before. I'm sorry. I stared at it, then set the phone down. Some bridges didn't need burning, they just didn't need crossing anymore. In my new office, small and sunlit, I pinned the torn test above my desk. Not for pain, but for proof. I'd built my own table, and no one, not Victoria, not the panel, not my past, could take that away. The hum of ApexTech's development floor greeted me as I stepped off the elevator, my new badge clipped to a blazer that still carried the faint smell of Seattle rain. The torn test pages, now taped together, sat in my bag like a talisman, proof of the battle I'd won, but also a reminder of the war that wasn't over. Victoria's final words, "This isn't over, Emma," echoed in my mind, sharp as the click of her heels as security led her out. I pushed the thought aside, focusing on the rhythm of keyboards and the low buzz of coders debating algorithms. This was my space now, not hers. But even as I settled into my desk near the dev team, a prickle of unease crawled up my spine. Something was watching me, and it wasn't just the glass walls. My new office was small, sunlit, and alive with the chaos of creation. Whiteboards scrawled with data models, monitors flickering with lines of code, and a faint hum of collaboration that felt like home. I pinned the torn test above my desk, its frayed edges catching the light like a battle scar. It wasn't about Victoria anymore. It was about me choosing dignity over desperation. I opened my laptop, ready to dive into my first project as lead data strategist, when an alert flashed across my screen. Unauthorized access detected. System lockdown initiated. My heart sank. Not today. Not on my first day. The dev floor went quiet, heads popping up like prairie dogs sensing a storm. "Emma, you seeing this?" called Mia, the intern I'd met weeks ago, her voice tight with panic. Her resume had been a lifeline then, clutched like a shield. Now she was part of my team, her eyes wide as she pointed to her monitor. The same alert glared back at me. I leaned in, scanning the error logs. Someone had tripped the security protocols on ApexTech's core AI server. My server, the one I'd built the ethics framework for. The logs showed a login attempt from an external IP, flagged as malicious. My fingers froze over the keyboard. This wasn't a random hack. It felt personal. I pulled up the server's audit trail, my pulse quickening. The IP address was local, traced to a Seattle cafe 2 blocks from headquarters. Too close to be a coincidence. I remembered Victoria's parting shot, her promise of unfinished business. Could she really be this reckless? I pushed the thought down and focused. "Mia, lock down the secondary nodes," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'm tracing the breach." As my team scrambled, I dove into the code, lines blurring as I hunted for the intruder's footprint. The hack was clever. Subtle injections into the AI's decision-making module, designed to skew outputs just enough to cause chaos without being obvious. It was the kind of sabotage that could tank a project or a career. My career. I isolated the breach, but not before a second alert pinged. Data leak detected, client metrics exposed. My stomach dropped. Those metrics were my work, the unsigned reports James had revealed in the boardroom. If they leaked, ApexTech's biggest clients would pull out, and I'd be the scapegoat. The dev floor was a hive of tension now, coders whispering, managers hovering. I caught Mark's silhouette in the glass conference room, his tan still too perfect, his eyes darting toward me. He hadn't forgotten the boardroom humiliation, and I hadn't forgotten his smirk when he tore my test in half. Was he involved? I couldn't trust anyone yet, not even my own team. I leaned closer to my screen, my fingers flying as I patched the breach, rerouting data to a secure backup, but the damage was done. A client had already received a corrupted report, and my inbox was flooding with urgent emails. "Emma, legal's on the line," Mia said, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, grabbing my headset. The legal advisor, Karen, was all business. "We've got a problem. A client's threatening to sue over the leak. They're saying it's your framework. You need to explain this now." I swallowed hard. It's not my framework. It's a targeted attack. I've traced the IP to a cafe nearby. I'm handling it. Karen's silence was heavy, skeptical. Handle it fast, Emma. The board's watching. I hung up, my mind racing. The cafe. I grabbed my coat and bag, the torn test pages brushing against my hand as I stood. Mia, keep the team on the patch. I'll be back. She nodded, her nervous smile mirroring the one I'd seen in the hallway weeks ago. I didn't have time to reassure her. I had to move. The cafe was a hipster haven, all exposed brick and overpriced lattes. The barista barely glanced up as I scanned the room, my eyes landing on a corner table where a laptop sat unattended, its screen glowing with ApexTech's login portal. My breath caught. I approached, my heart pounding, and saw the IP address flashing in the corner. The IP. Before I could touch it, a figure slipped into the seat across from me, not Victoria. A guy, mid-20s, hoodie pulled low, his smirk as sharp as a blade. Looking for something? He asked, his voice low, taunting. Who are you? I demanded, my hand tightening on my bag. He leaned back, unfazed. Just a friend of a friend. You've got enemies, Emma Larson. Powerful ones. I didn't blink. Tell Victoria her games won't work this time. His laugh was cold and he slid a USB drive across the table. Check this. You'll see who's really playing. I grabbed the drive and left, my mind a storm of questions. Back at ApexTech, I plugged it into a sandboxed system, my hands shaking. The drive contained a single file, an email draft forged with my name, calling a major client a corporate disaster in loafers. It was the same trick Victoria had pulled before, but this was sloppier, rushed. The metadata pointed to her old admin credentials. My blood ran cold. She wasn't just out for revenge. She was trying to bury me. I called James, my voice steady despite the chaos. Victoria's behind the hack. I've got proof. He didn't hesitate. Meet me in the boardroom. Bring everything. The boardroom was the same glass cage, but the air was heavier now, charged with the weight of what was at stake. James stood at the head of the table, his calm masking a storm I knew too well. The board members were there, their faces a mix of skepticism and unease. Mark sat in the corner, his pen twirling again, his eyes avoiding mine. Karen, the legal advisor, stood by the screen, ready to take notes. I laid out the USB drive, the forged email, and the server logs. Victoria used her old credentials to access the AI server, I said. She planted a backdoor to leak my metrics and frame me. Karen's eyes narrowed. You're saying your sister orchestrated a cyber attack from a cafe 2 blocks away? That's a bold claim, Emma. It's not a claim, it's fact. I pulled up the logs, pointing to the IP and the timestamp. She used a proxy, but the metadata ties back to her. She's done this before. Forged emails, sabotaged my work. This is just louder. Mark leaned forward, his smirk faint but present. Convenient that you're the one finding all this evidence, Emma. Maybe you're covering your own track. I felt the room tilt, but James's hand brushed mine under the table, grounding me. The logs don't lie, he said, his voice cutting through Mark's insinuation. Neither does the footage. He nodded to the screen where security footage from the cafe played, showing the hooded guy slipping Victoria a laptop. Her face was clear, her expression cold and calculated. The board murmured, their doubt shifting toward Victoria. Karen spoke up. This is grounds for legal action. Forging credentials, data theft, it's criminal. She turned to me. You're sure you want to pursue this? It's your sister. I didn't hesitate. She stopped being my sister when she tried to erase me. The room went quiet, the weight of my words settling like dust. James stood. I move we suspend all access tied to Victoria's credentials and launch a full investigation. Emma takes lead on securing the server. The vote was unanimous, but Mark's silence was louder than the rest. I didn't trust him, not yet. As the board dispersed, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You think you've won? Check your desk. My heart skipped. I bolted to the dev floor, my steps echoing in the empty hallway. My desk was untouched except for a single sticky note taped to my monitor. You'll never outlast me. No signature, but I knew her handwriting, the same sharp cursive that had scrawled unqualified across my resume. I tore the note down, my hands trembling not with fear but with fury. This wasn't just about a job anymore, it was about survival. I sat at my desk, the torn test pages staring back at me, and opened my laptop. The server was still vulnerable and I had work to do. Hours passed, the dev floor emptying as night fell. Mia stayed, her quiet presence a reminder that I wasn't alone. We rebuilt the firewall, line by line until the system was secure. But as I saved the final patch, my screen flickered and a new alert flashed. System override initiated. Admin access. V. Larson. Victoria. She was still in the system somehow. I traced the override, my fingers flying, but it was too late. A second leak had already hit, this time exposing internal emails I'd never sent, accusing ApexTech's biggest client of fraud. The fallout would be catastrophic. My phone rang. Karen again. Emma, the client's pulling out. They're blaming you. Fix this, or you're done. I didn't sleep that night. I worked through the dark, Mia by my side, as we rebuilt the system from scratch. By dawn, we'd contained the leak, but the damage was done. The client was furious, and the board was circling. I knew Victoria wasn't working alone. Someone inside ApexTech was helping her, someone with enough access to keep her credentials alive. Mark's smirk flashed in my mind, but I had no proof. Not yet. The next day, I walked into a meeting with the board, my bag heavy with the torn test pages and the USB drive. James stood by me, his presence a quiet anchor. I laid out the new evidence, Victoria's override, the forged emails, the sticky note. She's not just targeting me, I said. She's targeting ApexTech. If we don't stop her, she'll take us all down. Karen nodded, her skepticism gone. We're filing charges. Data theft, fraud, defamation. She's done. But Mark leaned back, his pen twirling again. You're awfully quick to throw your sister under the bus, Emma. Family loyalty mean nothing to you. The room froze. I met his eyes, my voice steady. Loyalty doesn't mean letting someone burn you alive. Victoria made her choice. I'm making mine. James stepped forward, his voice low but firm. Emma's proven her value. She's saved this company twice in a week. Anyone questioning her loyalty can answer to me. Mark shrank back, his smirk gone. As I left the boardroom, Mia caught up with me, her eyes bright. They called me for the junior dev role. I got it thanks to you. I smiled, the first real one in days. You earned it, Mia. Keep building. Back at my desk, I taped the sticky note next to the torn test pages. Another scar, another lesson. My phone buzzed, another text from my mom. I didn't know how far she'd go. I'm sorry. I stared at it, then set it aside. Apologies weren't enough anymore. I'd built my own path, and no one, not Victoria, not Mark, not my family, could take it from me. The sun set over Seattle, casting gold across the dev floor. I leaned back in my chair, the torn pages glowing like a beacon. Victoria's shadow was still out there, but I wasn't afraid. I'd faced her once, I'd do it again, and this time I wasn't just surviving. I was fighting to win.